Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 388, Destinies.
Welcome, citizens of Meeple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Meeple Nation is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. If you are looking to upgrade your game night, upgrade each and every one of the games that you have that you bring to your table, Game Toppers LLC has the solution for you. You can order a beautiful game topper, add to your game space. They have a plethora of mats that you can choose from.
Did you just say a plethora?
A plethora. They have a plethora of mats that you can choose from, plus they have different styles of toppers also. They have the wood grain toppers, they have the black powder-coated aluminum, tons of different options, tons of different sizes. Go check them out, GameToppersLLC.com. And you can also still check them out on Kickstarter. They're in late pledge right now, so you can still jump in on it.
We love their product for sure. We are your hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Nathan Howard.
I'm Dave Holliday.
I'm Logan Howard.
And I am Andy Holliday.
Check out our webpage, MeepleNation.com. We have all sorts of goodies there. We have blog. We have pictures from our Instagram. We have links that you can go back and check out any past episode you want. You can check out our bios, check us out, get a little bit more information about us. That's MeepleNation.com.
This week we are discussing Destinies, a game for 1 to 3 players.
Best with 2.
And if you get the Kickstarter expansion, you can go up to 4 players. It's a 90 to 150 minute playing time, designed by Michal Golebiowski and Filip Milunski. Published by Lucky Duck Games. Destinies is a competitive, story-driven game of adventure and exploration, mixing an app and a board game.
Yeah, so Lucky Duck Games, they're the ones that brought us Chronicles of Crime. Took a lot of the lessons they learned from building the Chronicles of Crime app and created this competitive D&D type experience using the same technology. And I think it works pretty well.
I agree. I love Chronicles of Crime. Enjoyed every time I've played it, but I like this more.
Yeah, I like the latest version of Chronicles of Crime. I don't have anything against the previous version.
I would agree with that.
Although I tend to get more distracted and less interested in the original version. The 1900, 2900, 3900, is that what it was? Those that we've tried, I find that involve me more. This Destinies plays along that same kind of style, like you were saying, Logan. They introduced with Chronicles of Crime, but I feel like this Destinies does it better. I really like this. Even though I stink at the game, I really like it.
Your grumpy pants have been worn multiple times.
Yes.
We're talking about it being so similar to the other. It's definitely very different. I mean, you're not trying to solve a crime.
We're just saying that it's the same people that made both games. Not necessarily that they're similar, just lessons learned from one to influence the other.
Right. Definitely can tell there's a lot of... that it was done by the same people, but it's quite different. I mean, just the fact that it's competitive, for one, makes a big difference. You use the app to scan things, but it's not necessarily in the same way.
No, it's not. In fact, this game, it's very interesting how they have it developed, because it is a Dungeons & Dragons type game. It has a lot of exploration on it, because that's what we're talking about this month, right? Exploration. When you go to set up, you pick the scenario, download the scenario, and then it has you pick from certain characters in the box that give you not very much information about what they are to the other players. You get to read a little bit about your bio in the back, kind of like to give clues to your motivation, but everybody else just knows you as like the noble or the nun.
Right, and then on the back of that card, you also have your 2 paths to victory. You can actually work on both of them during the game, but it's usually better to focus on one. Sometimes the other players are competing for the same types of goals that you're trying to do. So sometimes it is beneficial, depending on what you're guessing the other players are going for, to switch mid-game.
Yes, every time I've won, I've been able to switch.
Because the first time we played, Logan, Dave and I played, I was just following around Dave, because I was thinking, well, Dave's doing my quest. So if I just get the information that Dave gets, and I just remember that information, I'm going to be able to go on and complete my quests, which is not the case at all, which I found out the hard way. Probably halfway through that game, I realized I had to begin my own quest on the other side to forge my own path. Like you said, and there's opportunities where some players can be investigating or discovering the same path. So at one point you got to decide who's further along that investigation, and you both can't do it. You're both trying to investigate something that is happening at the church, for example. Then you need to interact with the guy, and Dave interacted with the guy, and now the guy's gone. Well, then I can't progress that path. I gotta go work on my other fork, the other quest that's available to me.
This is one of the games that I think does really well the board game app scenario without needing the TV to give everybody all the information. Because you're reading, and you read everything out loud. Even if you go and interact with somebody at the church, like you're saying, you have the option of scanning one of your destinies to give you more information, clue of, like you said, go talk to the church, go search the woods over there. Everybody hears all of that information if they're paying attention. But at the same time, it's supposed to be more pertinent to you because you know the missing pieces. But I actually like that on the app. When you go to explore, you just build out the map for the town or whatever it is that we're doing. But you can click on all the tiles and it'll tell you what's there. It tells you when you put it out, this is the chapel, this is the town square. It tells you that put out these different numbered tiles because it actually does create a map. But then to be able to, most of that information, like poking around and looking around on the app, I think is huge. Instead of Logan looked too much at the phone and now we're screwed because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, where the quest is dedicated, not necessarily limited to 1 to 2 people.
Let's back up. Let's talk about how the game works. Remember, it's a game for 3 players. So each scenario has 3 different characters that are pre-selected, the 3 characters that are going to be in the game.
Correct. If you really enjoyed playing the nun in one scenario, you can't pull it into another scenario. I'm going to be the nun again.
So you have those 3 characters, and you just take turns picking you, and it's a little card, double-sided card. So there's 2 paths you can choose, and on the back side of the card, on the left side, there's kind of like a darker hue to one of your choices. It's one path that you can choose, one destiny. And then on the right side is the other, the light side that you can choose to follow.
And those are scenario specific, which is why you can't play the same character through different scenarios, because those destinies are specific to that scenario, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they are. It's kind of weird because I think it was pitched as overarching connectivity in a way, but at the same time, each scenario is completely self-contained. So it's not like you need to play Scenario 2 to understand what you need to do and what the story is going on in Scenario 3. You get that little information on the back. I think what you were talking about, too, is the colors. You need to pay attention to that because when you have the opportunity to ask people about your destiny, you want to make sure you're asking for the right one. Wasn't that a confusion for you, Nate, where you were scanning the wrong side of the card or something?
Yeah, that's just me making a simple mistake. I wasn't matching the colors. And so when on the other side, the colors didn't match. They weren't in the same spot. And so I kept looking at what I was trying to do, and it wasn't matching up with what I was doing. Everything I was investigating, I was like, I'm supposed to be finding 3 pals to form some sort of
Posse
or whatever.
board game group.
And I kept running into finding relics and stuff, and I was like, well, these relics are helpful, but they're not helping me find any people. It was a simple Nathan's a moron and not following his colors.
When you pick your character, the app, it'll actually have you set up your skills tracker. Throughout the game, you're going to have 3 different skill checks. It doesn't just have like acrobatics or mobility, or it goes back to the base skills, but even more, it simplifies it down to 3. So it has willpower, your dexterity, and then your strength. So out of those 3s, it'll have you put 11 of these little tokens that it'll tell you to put on certain numbers that determine how skillful you are in that area. Open the rulebook and it's showing you an example right now. Under the nun, under the intelligence marker, that she'll have one of these tokens on number 4, 7, 10, and 11. Dexterity she has 4. She has that under 5, 7, 11, and 12. And then strength she only gets 3, and that is 5, 8, and 11. In this game, you're also going to get your 2 main dice, and then they call them effort dice. Each round, you're going to get one of these purple dice into your pool that you're allowed to add into any check. But what's unique about the system, which I actually found that I quite enjoy, is when you go to do a skill check, you can roll the 2 main dice and as many purple dice as you want into the check, and then whatever number you get to, that's how many successes you have. So if I roll like the intelligence with the nun right here, I roll the dice and I roll my numbers and I get up to an 8, then I get 2 successes for what she has up there. And I input that into the app.
Because that's based on where your tokens are on her intelligence track.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 2 of your markers at 8 or below, that's going to give you 2 successes. Now, if you had if you had your next marker at a 9 and you rolled a 9, then that would now in turn give you 3 successes. Great. I love how they've done that with the gaining successes and the fact that you can improve those and drop those down.
Which is actually one of the best things. When you're playing the game and you go to like select a location like Nathan was talking about the church, I'm going to go to the church and the app will have sometimes a whole list of actions that you can do. And you can do any number of those actions until the app tells you to stop. So sometimes you make the wrong choice and it says, okay, well, your turn's over, so you can't do anything else. But up to that point, you can just choose as many things as possible. What's kind of nice about it is that there's not huge consequences for screwing up your skill checks.
Yeah, I also really like how these skills work on this. I think it's a really unique, very cool new mechanic. And I love the fact that, yeah, typically when you fail one, so if I make a strength check and I don't get enough successes to meet whatever they want, and it doesn't tell you how many you need to get. You put in how many you get, and if it's enough, it gives you some reward along with some text for the story. If it's not enough, it gives you a little bit of text of how you failed. It'll usually say something like lose 1 strength, but then gain an experience token.
And those experience tokens are nice. They'll allow you to bump up any of your 3 skills up by 2. And that can be any 1 skill twice or 2 skills once.
And just to clarify, when you say increase by up to, you're saying move down the track so they're more likely to get successes, right?
Right, yeah. Move it to the left side of that track. Andy, like you were talking, get them below 9, and then you roll a 9. Now all of a sudden you have 3 successes. The last game we played, I believe, Andy, you had one of yours that you had 4 of your discs below 6.
Yeah.
So if you rolled a 6, you had 4 successes. Also, some of those dice have an additional success on them, so you could exceed that amount. And I believe, if I recall correctly, you won that last one, and having those successes were huge for you.
Absolutely huge. Yeah, game changer, really, because it all comes down to successes, and I know that you and I in that game were neck and neck on finishing.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that I was able to catch up. That was the time where I wasn't matching up my colors. I thought I was off somewhere completely different.
And that's the one thing about this game is sometimes it'll give you a clue on where to investigate next, and sometimes it doesn't, and you're just kind of trying to read, okay, well, maybe the inn, that kind of sounds like what I'm looking for might be there. You're trying to kind of read into the game exactly what, maybe the thieves' camp, there's going to be some people of ill rapport that I maybe need to go talk to fulfill my destiny.
There was some keyword when somebody else was reading something,
right.
Like, oh, what was there? Where you at? Oh, okay.
And I think you have to take note of that. It's not always clear where you need to go, so you really do need to pay attention on other players' turns, because there will be little clues that get thrown out there. Especially helpful if maybe that person isn't going for the same things you are. That may help you. Oh, well, they're not going for that because they moved on. I can go over there and jump on that because they have what I want. Or at least I think that place will have what I want, right?
One of the other things that you're going to encounter when you play the game are item cards. And they're all numbered, just kind of like Chronicles of Crime, so they're easy to keep organized and pull them out. I believe it's 1 through 21, 22. They're one-time use cards. You have this cool ability, but discard it after use. One of the basic ones that you have in the first scenario I remember having was the sword. It was great, but it was a discard, but instead of rolling your dice, you just got 10 as your success number. So all of your tokens that are below 10, you just get to add those as automatic successes.
Well, not only that, there are some tests that will say, oh, well, if you have a weapon, scan your weapon. And you're not necessarily using it for the ability, but because you have that particular item, you're able to get a bonus, or it'll help you maybe not even have to do a roll.
What you're saying is that you have the opportunity when you go into a skill check, either scanning your card or rolling dice.
Right.
And if you use the wrong card, you fail. And if you use the right card, you automatically pass. So it's kind of a shot in the dark, does this sound familiar? Can I do this? I was really happy when I climbed a tree with an axe.
You didn't use the axe to chop the tree down. You used the axe to give you a foothold to climb higher up into the tree, which was a clever touch that you're like, okay, I'm thinking I'm going to chop down this tree.
I still had to discard the card,
Yeah.
but it made an automatic success.
Well, it's because your nun was super strong and she planted that axe in the tree with
I think-
superior force.
I think Dave was the nun in that game, but how they have the items, I think, is great. Also, one of the abilities that they have, so when you're at the church and the bishop's there or whatever, one of the options that they normally have is that you can ask certain people about cards, and they'll tell you kind of a clue of how they're used in the scenario. If the blacksmith is looking for silver items and you find the silver crucifix, you scan it and then they're like, oh yeah, the blacksmith was saying he was looking for something like this. You're like, oh, okay, so there could be something that I deal with this down that way. But the cards that are above 22, 21, they go up to like 60 something. They're more unique cards. They're all use always and have much better abilities. They're much harder to come by though.
And then there's a chance that you'll lose them as you progress through your quest.
Which is like the most frustrating thing because you like
I got
build
this-
up, level up your character, and then I have to potentially give this really cool ability up to kind of start the end game. It's very ambiguous about when the best time is to do that stuff.
Anytime you can progress the game, you should try to progress the game.
Absolutely. Especially for how quickly it goes. Once somebody gets to that point, if you're not anywhere close, I've noticed this anyway, there's very little chance that you're going to win. If someone starts their in-game stuff, and this was the very last game I played it, and you were the one that won, and you started your end game, and I'm just like, I barely even started. I was doing all of your guys' quests that weren't even part of either one of mine. I just happened to be grabbing all the things you guys were looking for.
Yeah.
Not important to me at all, because they didn't further either one of my destinies. I think that if someone starts that process, depending on their roles, that you have a chance to catch up, you have to be almost ready to start your in-game process for your destiny as well. Otherwise, you're not going to win.
Yeah, I think it was the last time I played, it was with our friend Corey and David. Endgame was started, and I was 3 turns behind, but there was no way I was catching up. Rules do state that just because someone started the endgame doesn't mean they necessarily win first, but you have to be right about there.
Yep.
Because it just depends on who's the most prepared for the endgame. Because once you start the endgame, it gives you a clue on your card where to go to start it. You click, yes, I'm starting the endgame, and then it'll take you through a series of checks, so you're no longer allowed to explore the map. You're only allowed to go and do what it tells you to do. But you make a choice. This is happening. Are you going to use your friends? Are you going to use your items? What's going to happen? Are you going to do a skill check? If you pass, great, you progress to the next level. And I believe you do that about 3 or 4 times typically.
Going back to what you were saying, Andy, and to Logan's point as well, is you started your end game the last time we played long before I started mine. I'd say probably 2, maybe 3 turns before. But I almost was able to catch up and win. I would have completed my quest the same turn you did had you not gone first.
It really does depend on rolls. I rolled terrible in one of those rounds, which allowed you to get 1 round closer to me. I think the successes are cumulative that you through that process.
Right.
And it would have been difficult, even you only being 2 rounds behind me, to beat me. Notice that with every time we've played this. So that seems to be the case.
What you were talking about earlier even was paying attention as other people explore, because you just have to pick a direction to start exploring the map. That's just the main way to figure out where stuff that sounds similar. One time when we were playing, Dave was the witch. This is where Nate got mad because he kept swooping in and doing everything that he was exploring, except Dave's strategy was anything that sounds witch-like, I want to be there to do the checks and get the rewards because it's probably going to be the best thing for me. It was the same thing with our friend Doug and his wife Lydia. When they played this game, she really enjoyed it. It just so happened to work out the exact same way. Wherever Doug explored, it's what his wife needed to get for her mission, so she was able to swoop in and get the stuff. Kind of frustrating that way because it does not give you clear directions. It does not say, oh, now that you've talked to the mayor, next check mark on the mission is you need to go talk to the village priest or something. There's no clear linear path to it. It just gives you, collect these things, start your mission.
In that case, if you're playing a 2-player game, I think it's easier to avoid that because you only get 2 points of movement in the game. That's if things are explored. If you move into a tile that's not explored, then your movement ends. But if you split up and you try to get away from the other person, it's going to be harder for them to swoop in, take something that you're getting a clue for. That being said, it's harder for you to do that to them if they get a clue and, oh, dang it, why couldn't I be close to them? So it's a catch-22, but I can see this being more fun. When it says it's best with 2, I can totally see that. That being also said, I think it would be great to play with 4 players. You don't have the Kickstarter version of this?
No.
He does have the Kickstarter version, but he doesn't have that expansion.
Right. When you got the Kickstarters, I didn't select a particular add-on because I'm hesitant to add things on. I don't know why. I should just do it half the time. But it was the one that if you would have got it, it would have turned the game into a 2 versus 2. Be on a team with somebody else trying to complete your collective destiny.
That is one of my biggest beef with the game, is the player count. It only being 3 players makes it a little difficult to the table. I will say this, though, since we've been able to split up a game night on Thursday night game nights, it has gotten to the table substantially more than I thought it ever would.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. When it was just the 4 of us that were here.
It's never going to get played. Then there was 5 of us, and now we're up to 6 of us. And so when you get 6 of us to the table, it is super easy to split. Destinies becomes far more accessible to our group than it was when we only had 4 people.
Do note that they do say that they come with a collection of minis in the game. When they mean minis, they are very mini.
That is very true. And I
should
also
call them micros.
I'll also say this. I think in this game, more importantly, it would be good to paint your miniatures because it is
so difficult to tell them apart.
It really is. Certain ones, right? Certain miniatures look so alike because they're so small.
Because they're like 3/4 of an inch tall, 1/4 of an inch tall. They're so mini. They have nice details and everything on them still. Like, I'm impressed with the amount of details they can get on that small amount of plastic. But at the same time, which one's which? One game that I think I was a soldier, but I ended up moving around the blacksmith half the time because we're like so similar.
Well, you have a knight also, and especially with the soldier in particular, there's a lot of minis that look very similar, can easily be confused.
Yeah. And then they have a couple of really cool, larger ones. So I think we're approaching the last mission on the core Destiny box here soon. I think each box comes with the main enemy, that's the really giant big one. We'll see if we come up against that. And when I say really big, it's like normal Nemesis size versus D6 size minis.
Overall, still, I think, like you mentioned at the first of the podcast, Logan, that I wore my grumpy pants both times that I've played it. I've only played it the 2 times. Yeah, the first time, Dave kept doing all my stuff, and then the second time, I was doing all my stuff, but I thought I was doing one quest. I kept thinking I was trying to do the other quest. Overall, still, I think the game is well done. You look at how the game uses the app to progress the story, to interact with town folk, to interact with items, to interact with locations. It does it very well. Again, like we talked at the beginning, I think it does it better than Chronicles of Crime. Like Dave was saying, you can't really compare the games because they are very different games. But the way that the app interacts with this game, for me anyways, it appeals a lot more to me than Chronicles of Crime does.
Oh yeah, medieval D&D kind of experience is much more attractive to Nathan than just, hey, let's solve a crime.
No, even that Chronicles of Crime 1400, I guess I'm not a big fan of the virtual room where you're looking around trying to find clues. I like the idea of it, I like the premise of it, to me, that it does what it should do. That's just me, right? It's just that it doesn't shine for me. I see the appeal of it, I see the use for it, and how it can be maybe more immersive. I guess for me, it didn't hit like I was hoping it would.
I love this game. I think it was a good purchase. Been a big fan of Lucky Duck games for a while now. One of the best things I think about this game is the exploration and how the app remembers that you've done things. If you go up and talk to a particular character and they say like, oh hey, I'll tell so-and-so that you helped me out, you don't have to like check mark or do anything else because the app remembers it. So then when you physically go in the game to the other end of the board and talk to that person, like, oh yeah, none so-and-so said you were a good person, so I'll help you out. It makes it so much easier to do those things. As much as it builds the board and takes up space, it's not nearly as intensive as some of those bigger games that we play that have pieces and stacks of cards everywhere to remember everything. So I like that it has simplified it that with the app.
I think you're correct. Tracks that it's my turn, progresses my story on my turn. It does that well.
The app integration is great. I disagree with Nathan on Chronicles of Crime. I think it's an awesome game. Thoroughly love the fact that you're looking at the crime scene in kind of VR style. I think that's just such a cool touch to that game. Will agree with Nathan, though. I enjoy this more than Chronicles of Crime. I love medieval era games. It really is just as the medieval fantasy style games.
And that appeals to you strongly.
Very much so.
He likes Star Wars just fine. Star Wars, Imperial Assault, and Descent. Fantasy, Andy's like, well, I'm more fantasy. It's
right.
Like, it tips it that way for Andy. So.
It does. And there's other things between those two games. Just like there's differences between this and Chronicles of Crime that push me more towards this. I like the storytelling aspect of this game. I've found that win or lose, it's still really fun to see what happens at the end of the game. How that story progresses depending on who won.
Yeah.
And with the outcomes, what happens to my character. Because it still kind of tells you, it gives you an outcome of each of the characters. I love it. I think that's just so neat. Whether you win or lose, you still get a little bit of closure, and it's cool. I really think they've done a good job with it.
So I haven't had the opportunity to play it one player yet. They either have, I think it's called easy mode or story mode, where you just go around and you have unlimited time, go do everything that you need to do. And then they have exploration mode, which is timed. So you only have so much time to go about and explore, and then you'll fail the game after so many game turns.
Oh, wow.
It's the only way that they suggest playing a scenario over, because it was just like you're saying, the storytelling. But although I would be interested in playing the game over just to see like missions that I won and like, does it change the story versus what Destiny that you do, and then other characters, how does that affect for them? I'm very interested in stuff like that.
You complete the story and you win, and then you find out how sad the story turns out for the other two players that lost.
And that's the thing, is it would be such a bummer if you played this whole game and progressed your character's story, and then you don't even know what happened to your character, right? It does not leave that open. It closes it all for you. It's so well done.
That part's a little bit more difficult for me, just because I have such a hard time paying attention. I want to enjoy that. I'm not able to follow the whole thing, so somebody's reading the thing that happened, and I don't quite follow it as much. So I don't get quite the same enjoyment out of that as you do, for that reason. But I like the idea, and I know for those that a little bit better ability to do that than I am, that it works out great.
This is Destinies. I fully suggest picking this game up. Plays 1 to 3, so you have to know that going in. It is competitive. Only one victor. But besides that, awesome use of your time and money.
I agree. I think it's a game that I think I could get my wife to play this game. I think she would have a lot of fun playing it.
Well, I think it would help if you just say, hey, remember you liked Chronicles of Crime? This is made by the same people, and it's like, oh.
Yep, I think so. Fairly accessible game. It's not overly complex. Simple movement rules. Yeah, I think it's great. Well done.
For me, this one, it's a good game. Not a great game. Well, I do love a lot of the story-driven games. This one, for me, for whatever reason, it's not as easy for me to track and follow and really know what's going on. So, I enjoy it, but I enjoy a lot of games more.
I thought it was a good game. I had fun with it. I will hopefully do better the next time I play. I mean, I didn't do bad the second time I played. I'm looking forward to it. Like we've already discussed, I liked how the story's concluded. I thought it was well done. Also, like you mentioned, the player count still seems kind of tough for us to get to the table.
Makes it harder to get to the table, and then for everybody to experience it.
Yeah. I would recommend it. I think it would be a fun game for most any group. I don't think my wife would play it. I'm trying to get my wife to play Jaws of the Lion, though. We'll see how that goes. Keep waiting for her to say, ready to play a game again.
Those magic words.
Yes, let's play a game. The words I want to hear more than anything in life. I want to play a game.
Until next time,
we'll see you in the woods, finding your destiny.
As always, we want to thank you for listening.
Check out our website. We have all sorts of cool things there. Love those blogs. Get a deeper look into the writing side of Meeple Nation.
Join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Follow us on Twitter at Meeple Nation. We also have Instagram.
Under the same name. We also want to thank our sponsor, GameToppersLLC.com.
We love their product, and they have so much goodness out there.
And we also want to thank Braden Detergent for our music.
This week we are discussing Destinies.
Okay, you're going to have to say that again.
Did I say disgusting?
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
I'm tired. I don't know if I've mentioned this.
Any of your any of your 4 skills